This is John Beethan, your host today on Alternative Health Tools, and this is episode 72, and it's titled Chef Lance Roll on Bone Broth. Good for me, because I knew absolutely nothing about bone broth. I'd heard a lot of people talk about it. I even know some people that have made it themselves. But today you're going to find out the history of it, the tradition of it, and we have rich resources and links on Alternative Health Tools. Just look up episode 72, or you can actually do a search for Lance. And you're going to learn more about it from the Jade Institute Bone Broth and Sally Fallon from her book, Broth is Beautiful. We'll find out about the hydrophilic molecule, which is really interesting, bioindividuality, and then references to Dr. Tom O'Brien on gluten, David Pittman's Mary's Chickens, and why you might want to consider throwing away your microwave oven. Welcome, Lance.
John, great to be here on this beautiful Saturday in sunny San Diego.
Yeah, I know. Southern California, man. It's like, how did you experience the winter this year here?
I was overjoyed with all of the rain and cold, and it brought lots of broth sales, so we were pretty happy.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Everything is green, John.
Yeah, I know. And it's like the bone broth is the new hot chocolate in San Diego, huh?
Yeah, it's getting there. I think there's still plenty of hot chocolate drinkers. So.
Oh, sure. I like actually Mexican hot chocolate. That's my favorite.
Yeah, of course. It's delicious.
So a little bit, you and I met at a Station Collab event. It was their broadcast, right?
Yep. It was their open house, as far as I could tell.
Yeah. Oh, it was really awesome. I absolutely love those people. And
it's a great venue and a great location for healing. Uh-huh. And I think these little centers like Station Collab are seeming to pop up all over the place.
Yeah.
People really need to come together in our field, in this healing field, because we need a lot of support.
Yep.
And that's basically what they said is like, hey, we're here to support each other and support you. And this is a place you can come to do lots of different things. So really cool location for us.
Yeah. I actually, last week I missed the, what was it? The elders, they did some little elders training, and given my age, folks, I'm not going to tell you how old I am. I should have been there, but I missed it somehow. They do all sorts of things. It was great. So what were you doing there? I mean...
I had, met with Amy at a little Willow Tree event. Our children go to Waldorf schools.
Oh, together?
And,
nice.
And so we have a connection there, and she reached out 3 or 4 months ago and said, hey, would you sponsor and be a vendor at our fair out in Fallbrook? So, of course, I agreed and brought my broth out there in a little tent. We haven't been doing farmers market, so it was kind of fun. Yeah. And we had a nice rainy day then as well. And that was a few days before the Station Collab event. Mm-hmm. And so I was there to just be part of the wellness community, and everyone in that community believes in bone broth. And the most important thing about bone broth is that it's bone broth. It's real, traditional, the art and craft of traditional healing bone broth, which is what we're working on over here at the FlavorChef.
Yeah, I was really glad to meet you there, and we didn't waste any time getting into a conversation.
Sure. Well, like I said, in this field, it seems like more and more times with us, we got a small segment of the population in general. Yeah. But that population is active. We're the 10%ers that are always on the field. Yeah. And not the 10%, not the 90% sitting in the stands and driving through the drive-through. We're on the field of helping people. We're in the field of we have mission statements to heal the planet. We have, this type of podcast where we're just continually sending things out to people saying, hey, we have this option. Here's what's out here. Yeah. Here's how you can improve your life. Yep. Here's how you can stay out of the system, which is basically, as one of my mentor's friends would say, it's a nasty cut out and throw pills at system in terms of healthcare.
Yeah.
And slash and burn, like, hey, we'll just take that gallbladder out and you'll be fine. Yeah, too bad your body can't really function too well without that gallbladder.
Yeah, but
lots of things like that. So I'm really glad to be, like I said, there was at least 2 or 3 Chinese herbalists there who are part of the community, and then they have acupuncture, and they have, they were doing qigong, which was amazing. I thought that was really a beautiful part of the ceremony that night. Some beautiful bowls and sound healing, all stuff I know you're familiar with, and of course, many of the audience may not be familiar with that, but they're hearing more and more about it, and they're experiencing it in local yoga community type centers or from their Chinese herbalist, and finding that they're being successful in treating themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody that listens to this podcast knows that the reason alternative health tools exist is that my co-host, Lisa Thorpe, and I, we discover new and alternative health tools from practitioners and experts. That would be you. And so
I would be. Thank you.
Yeah, so I like to enter always into the conversation like I don't know anything about bone broth, which for this show is actually true. And yeah, you had said that, I think you said Jimbo's had a special deal going on bone broth. Well, I haven't been by there, but I will be going by later on this afternoon. So I'm really curious about where this whole thing, or when this whole thing got started. How, I have my suspicions that it's been around for eons.
Absolutely. So the bone broth, healing bone broth. I mean, I'll do 2 quick journeys. The first one will be sort of the traditional journey, which is basically, from the Chinese herbalists and Chinese medicine, and just from cultures around the globe, not just China, Korea, Southeast Asia communities, Thai, Vietnam. You've got all those communities. You've got Eastern European philosophies with bone broth. You've got Northern Nordic philosophies, of course, with bone broth using fish, Caribbean fish and land animals in different places where the tradition was, basically you didn't have an option, you didn't have a store. So people would, communities were together. They were raising animals, potentially raising crops, potentially wild harvesting food. And they would, have this wonderful honor for the tradition of the food. And they didn't want to waste anything. So people started, at some point in time, and it is actually mentioned in antiquity, meaning back in the day of Hippocrates in those days. So there's some mention of bones being simmered with water and herbs. And we know from herbalism, from herbal traditions, from traditional healing in general, that herbs are very powerful and they come in different forms, and you can use them in different ways to create healing. And so the community, the indigenous peoples knew intuitively that, hey, if we can place these bones now that we can't chew into a liquid, simmer them over a fire, and add vegetables maybe, or like I said, roots or different things, or mushrooms, whatever they had, create sort of an elixir. And then they found as they gave it to their infirmed, that the infirmed would feel better, and they would feel better. And part of it, I really want to bring this out early in the conversation, is part of it is the energy, John, the energy that goes from the healer to the needed to be healed. And that energy is called love, and that love is the power that powers the universe. And it's a powerful energy, and we know from many studies, through metaphysical studies, that love heals, and breath work. I mean, we can't go into every modality of healing in this show, but to bring it back to bone broth. So there was an energetic exchange, and so part of that was my whole thing. Love is the ultimate spice. And so there's an energy exchange. I have you'll really like this too. So I'll move from that. That's sort of the traditional thing to the sort of my journey with it.
Sure.
And my journey as a chef. So I, again, intuitively knew at some point in time that I was going to be a chef. And I will clarify that I'm over 30 years as chef, and I started in my 20s. Or teens, really. And I always had a proclivity towards wanting to be around food. And we had a garden growing up on Long Island, and we had the barbecues in the summer. My mom was European, so Jewish European. So she was always making roasts and baked potatoes and food. And we had food on the table. And when we were kids, we didn't, my mom was like, you're not watching TV. You're going out to play in the mud and chase salamanders and pick up toads and grab gardener steaks and, have fun. And in the winter, we played ice hockey on the pond and we played stickball in the spring and we played, we did all these things as children. And of course, I was always around food and always enjoyed food anyway. So that was like sort of, and I believe, and I think people would associate with this, that people are giving gifts. They're giving gifts. They have all kinds of personality profiles you can determine. And my gift was food and taste and palate development. I'm working on my art and handcrafting sometimes and drawing, and I'm finding some good work with that too. But the truth is I make food really taste really good, and that's what I did my whole life. So, even when I was a kid in college, I was the one bringing sandwiches to the events and cooking Thanksgiving dinner for my roommates,
Oh, great.
And then I got into the professional thing. I was 1988, started in professional kitchen. And again, we were always making broths and stocks as part of European kitchen, as part of the background. As Scoffier once said, the founder of modern French cuisine, that, stock was the foundation of all cooking, And so that's even mentioned in Nourishing Traditions and some other books. So we'll just fast forward through 18 years for the sake of time.
Sure.
Around 2006, I was going through a lot of transition. I had, like I said, spent 18 years in the field. The last of those 18 years, I was teaching culinary at San Diego Culinary Institute here in San Diego. And one of my students came to me one day around middle of 2006 and said, hey, I have this institute over here that's looking for me to do food. I want to go cater a 5-day retreat. And I said, hey, man, let me help you out with it, Because he was just a student. So we went over. It happened to be Paul Chek and the Chek Institute. And so Paul Chek is an amazing guy and a great friend of mine to this day. And, there are no coincidences. I met Paul Chek at the perfect time in my own healing journey and started to cook for the Chek Institute and their practitioners, which is being done to this day. It's been the backbone of my business, my catering business, my food philosophy. And so Paul handed me Nourishing Traditions, and he said, when you cook for my people, you're going to use this book, and you're going to cook this type of food. He was also into metabolic typing as well as a rotation diet, which he still talks about and wants people on a rotation diet, which is basically eating one protein a day, chicken one day, beef the next day, fish the next day, maybe beans and legumes the next day. And that's morphed a bit, but essentially that's what was happening at the time. So we started catering for them. I got a hold of Nourishing Traditions after 18 years, started ripping through that book because he wanted me to cook that food. I was moving out of my professional career into my own business. And so I really needed to learn a lot about. I was like, wow, organic food heals. His book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, was the book that really changed my life as well, and all about organic soil. So sometime in that transition, we moved into 2007. I transitioned even more. I met my beautiful bride in June, and Susanna.
Yeah.
And was cooking for the Institute fully on my own now, not supported by any other, working for anyone, entrepreneur. I didn't even know I was an entrepreneur. Truthfully, I didn't know what it was called, but I was making my ends meet through catering and whatnot, meal deliveries and cooking for the Chek Institute and for Paul Chek himself. And somewhere around, this is a bona fide truth. It's been on like 50 podcasts or more at this point. Around it was 11/11/07, and I know the date because I recently, about 3 years ago, went and found, like, when did that actually happen? Because people are asking me, I started podcasting in 2012, like, when did you get this vision? And so I found a little article I'd saved in Word, and it was just called the stock article. And there it was, original date, 11/11/07. And it was like 11 o'clock at night that I was writing it because I got back at home, and I was literally in the parking lot at Cardiff Market.
Yep.
And here in Leucadia, California, or Cardiff, California, I should say. And, boom, this ton of bricks hit me in the head, and it was like, you're going to bring bone broth to the market. I'm like, I'm going to do what? Yeah, you're going to bring bone broth to the market. So I went home, wrote this article, started working on it, said, this is my vision. And of course, I was learning from articles from like Townsend Newsletter was one of the first articles from 2005. If you want to research that, Townsend Newsletter, 2005 bone broth, Jade Institute. and a few other the base. I mean, there was probably at that time maybe half a dozen articles on bone broth, aside from Sally Fallon's book and Sally Fallon's article, Broth is Beautiful, which came out in early 2000. Those were about it on the resources about the benefits of bone broth, So fast forward again, moving along, got married, had a baby, did all these different things. Great story on that one too. We had a real preconception diet and all these things, and I ended up 2011 with working with a local practitioner here, nutritionist, and she asked me, could you just put this in a package to bring it to my clients? So we were at that point making traditional bone broth based on the Nourishing Traditions book, simmered 18. We came up with 18-hour simmer on the chicken, and we were only doing chicken broth at the time. And so we finally put it in a package and started selling it in San Diego. And by October of 2012, I got on my first podcast, which was Underground Wellness with Sean Croxton. And that launched me into the national thing. At the time, he had the #1 health and wellness podcast on iTunes, which, again, you imagine 2012. Sure. iTunes wasn't nearly as big as it is today. Yeah. And there wasn't 1,000 podcasters, This was kind of new in the podcast world, I think. Or people were doing it, but I was unaware of it. But it was definitely way smaller than it is now. And so, yeah, we got calls from all over the country, ship me this broth tomorrow. I want this bone broth you're talking about. And so we knew there was a need. In January of 13, we opened up thebrothery.com, which is now bonebroth.com, and we own both domains. But we had taken out bone broth. So just rewind a quick second. In 2008, I took out 3 trademarks. The first one was theflavorchef. The second one was Broth is Good for You, Promotes a Healthier You. And the third one was Love is the Ultimate Spice. So we took out 3 trademarks. The business coaching at the time said, hey, if you believe in your product, just trademark it. So I did. I hired a trademark attorney, got those trademarks. And really, Broth is Good for You, Promotes a Healthier You. This is the part I know you're going to like. It's a smiley face. And the smiley face actually came from my dad, who was a very early user of biokinesiology, of behavioral kinesiology. And we were doing energy work with my soccer team in 1981. And one of the things we were doing was everyone had smiley faces. And, when you smile, your energy goes up. And my dad put my arm out, put his fingers on my thymus here, and pushed my arm down with the smiley face. And I couldn't, as strong as could be. Showed me the sad face, and down my arm went. Oh. It's like this energy testing. And sure. So in his honor, I used the smiley face as my trademark to infuse, again, just another infusion of energy into our product. Yes. So people see our product, they see the smiley face, and they smile. Yes. And that smile is instant energy in the positive form. And so we say broth is good for you, promotes a healthier you. Yeah. And part of that trademark, again, was as I learned a lot about bone broth, one of the big misconceptions right now is that bone broth is kind of part of a protocol. I'm hearing a little feedback right now. Okay. You hearing that? No. Okay, perfect. Then I'll keep going. So the idea of bone broth, John, is that bone broth is part of a protocol. It's part of everything you're doing. It's part of drinking clean water and enough water. It's part of eating organic food. It's part of potentially being in a yoga community or doing breathing or, moving away from, toxic diets and toxic chemicals on your body. Yeah. So you're kind of doing all these things. You may be working with a nutritionist, trying to lose some weight, trying to get more energy, fix a gut problem. Well, we've learned, and from even antiquity again, that all disease begins in the gut. So the big thing about bone broth promoting a healthier you is that bone broth is full of bioavailable, nutrient-dense collagen, gelatin, amino acids, minerals, and bioavailable meaning it's food. The body recognizes food and can take that food, and immediately with bone broth, it's immediately usable. It's, kind of a pre-digested in a sense is what Kayla Daniel would say. And because of that, it becomes a very great promoter of health. So if you're struggling with almost any immune condition, you drink bone broth, and again, it's like we were talking about yesterday. It's this experience you have with it, and it's because it's food and it's well made, and it could be your homemaker. It could be me if you're buying it from my product. And it's an experience you have with that product. So that was kind of the relationship that was happening with the caregiver and the healer with the bone broth in communities of old. And then, of course, you throw it into modern society in 2014, and you've got a bunch of spin-offs and whatnot. But So we at the Brothery, we like to say the Brothery is a brand that I own, and we're probably going to be bringing this brand back this year. But the vision is to restore, believe it or not, and preserve the art and craft of traditionally brewed bone broths. And meaning, so we're going to follow that MO to sort of bring it to people and create that niche, really to recreate our niche already of having that artisan crafted product that's well made and those kind of things. So that's sort of the nutshell of it. We can get into more questions and details, but the idea, the most important thing is gut health.
Yeah.
And we know that from, you don't have to ask me or believe me or John. You can go to the Nutritional Therapy Association. You can go to almost any clinician and nutritionist right now, and they will believe that. And again, the reason is biologically 80% or more of your immune system is in your gut system. Yep. There's so much material on the gut-brain connection.
Yep.
And whole books and studies have been done on it. And
I follow Dr. David Perlmutter, who wrote Grain Brain. He's a neurologist, and he went down the rabbit hole, or continues to go down the rabbit hole on gut health and brain function. So
sure.
So yeah, I mean, you're spot on. So it's really interesting while you were talking. I had this rich image. I used to live in New Mexico, and I had a dog, Maggie, who was half coyote and half Malamute. And so when she was outside, she was chasing rabbits and often would run them right down. But I remember going to the butcher and getting dog bones, and I remember I'd actually stick them in the freezer and bring one out of the freezer, and it would entertain her. She would sit there for a whole day just trying to get that bone marrow out,
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead.
As I say, very early in this, somewhere between 2007 and 2011, I was doing a bunch of different things to make money, and one of them was teaching classes on safety and sanitation. Uh-huh. And I had a Caribbean doctor in one of my classes, and he came up to me and he just said to me, he said, "I want you to know with your bone broth that it has been proven that cultures that eat bone, either chewing the bone like your dog did or simmering them to extract the nutrients like your bone broth, they live longer. They have what he calls, basically a building block, or I think he called it like their edifice. I think he used the word edifice, like their structure, their formal structure is better. Yeah. They feel better. They're stronger. They can't be knocked over. Jesus said, build your house on sand or build your house on a strong foundation. And not going to preach Jesus, but that's in the Bible too.
Yeah, sure.
And this strong foundation is the really idea that, this is what bone broth is doing. Yeah. It's creating a strong foundation so that you could be, I'm trying to think of the word, constitution. Yeah. My son's been on bone broth since he was a baby. He's 7. And again, I could count the times on one hand that he's had even an infection. He's never been on antibiotics. He does. Of course, we didn't vaccinate him, but essentially he goes to school. We go to a Waldorf school, and there could be sickness running through the kids, and he goes to school, and he stands up to their sickness. He's had a little here and there, but none of these down and out 2-week ear infections or something crazy.
Yeah. So I get the sense that bone broth is nutritionally dense.
Yeah, and let's clarify that too. The bone broth is nutritionally dense. Again, based on preparation. So we know that you're an expert in water. And, my product is made with, so we were using originally the Carlsbad spring water, and now we're using Palomar Mountain spring water. Yep. And it was just a based on delivery thing. But again, my mentor, Paul Check, it's the only water he'll drink. In 2012, it was named one of the top 5 waters in the world. It comes from a pristine source up here in San Diego. It comes down in a stainless steel truck, and it gets pumped from our 60-gallon tanks into our stainless steel kettles. So the system is pretty clean.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is because bone broth is mostly water. That's the transmuter of the nutrients. So we were talking again. I was talking about this. I will continue to talk about this, but the nutrient density comes from the process. Mm-hmm. So in other words, you can't throw a bunch of bones in a pot. And again, some people ask me about Instapots or pressure cookers, and I don't use them. I don't make comments on them. If that works for you, it works for you. But the traditional method is to simmer them low and slow over a long period of time. That period of time for us economically is 18 hours, and we find the most benefit around that time. And then for the beef bones, about 24 hours. There'll be people who claim 48, 72. I just don't think it's necessary. I think I could see the bones have been completely depleted after that amount of time, especially the chicken bones, because they're young animals. They live their whole life, but they're young in the sense that they're only 67 to 72 days old, birth to death. And cows are 28 to 32 months on pasture. So it's a much laboring, lumbering animal. And there's some interesting comments on bone broth through Ayurveda and through Indian philosophy. And the Ayurveda, by the way, is another philosophy that loves bone broth. They preach bone broth. They tell their students, one of my number one doctors, because we're creating the doctor's bone broth, is what we're in the market to do this in the next 3 months. Is like, we want to be the doctor's bone broth. Yeah. And the reason is because we follow these traditional methods. So Dr. Kulreet Chaudhry, I'll do a name drop. She's on Oz all the time, and she's an Ayurvedic naturopathic doctor, medical doctor, MD, not some other type of clinician, but literally an MD, and she refers us hundreds of clients. So she's amazing. But yeah, in the Ayurvedic tradition, there's some interesting things about whether you're going to eat chicken or beef, depending on your constitution, your the way they describe it. So the nutrient density comes from that, a low, slow simmer, and we also use a slew, 30 pounds or more in every batch of vegetables. So we have a carrot, celery, onions. We have a small component of ginger, garlic, lemons. This is all in our base bone broth. And
I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, it's a pretty. Our product, again, if it's made correctly, it's a what they call a protein sparer. So it literally satisfies you. They say the brothing part of the juicing and detoxing and fasting is because of the protein, you sort of feel sustenance is sustained. Again, for recovery, like injury, athletic injury, surgery, cancer, the recovery part is it's so easy to get into your system. You drink the bone broth, it's available immediately to your body. And lastly, isolation. Bone broth is not an isolated product. It's got type 1, type 2, type 3 collagen. It doesn't have one mineral isolated or two minerals. It has a whole list of trace minerals that you're getting, glutathione, a whole list of amino acid complex, not just one or two, but it's high in glycine, high in glutamine, high in all these other things, and that are proteins that your body can utilize immediately. So we have what I like to call is basically a complex. And again, when we have Paul Chek standing in front of a camera with my coconut soup, and he's talking about it, and he's a thoughtful man about his food, and he's looking in and he's saying, this is molecular. That's the term I like to use, because our body's made of molecules and atoms, and they're saying yes. They're saying yes to this, and it's
the same with water. It's the same with water. And I was also going to comment on what you're doing different using the Palomar water. Is it's quite possible that you're simmering 18 hours, let's say, and which is less and maybe not as much required because of the quality of water you're using. And again, the whole system. I mean, I think it was you or someone told me recently, hey, the water out there is getting worse and worse and worse. That's what I said.
Municipal systems are terrible.
Yeah.
And unless you're using an extremely good we're talking about thousands of gallons of water. And I'm talking a little bit about companies that may be potentially much bigger than I am making bone broth. And if you think that they're using these high-end filters to filter their water, some of them aren't even using filters. They're just saying water. They're just taking the tap water, putting it in, and I've seen nasty videos online of tap water when it's reduced.
Oh, yeah.
And what it's like. Oh my God, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So we take healing seriously. Mm-hmm. And we've had bona fide many people tell us about their documented and, hey, this product's helped me. And so we don't make doctors' claims on the bone broth. We just make what people are utilizing. And the reason, again, I just take no chances. And by using Palmer Mountain spring water, I'm bypassing everything. It's coming out of this deep well. It's going through a UV, which is required, into a stainless steel truck. It's coming literally down the mountain to my facility and going into my tanks and going into my kettle. So there's no chance for thing. It has a little micron filter to pull out any solids. Yeah. And then of course, so I think that as a carrier, that's really important to me personally and to people that are buying our product.
Awesome. So one thing I wanted to mention is that it's real obvious to me that it would be great for people that are actually having digestive problems trying to digest like red meat or chicken or anything else.
Sure. Well, again, this goes back to science. And Pottinger, in the early studies in the 30s, was working with his cats and different things. Francis Pottinger, mm-hmm. he uses this term hydrophilic, and broth is hydrophilic in that it helps draw water into your system, which helps you digest your food. So it's taking, again, I have to sort of get that definition. I always kind of mess that definition up, but hydrophilic is the word, and that's what broth does. So it helps you digest, and it helps you digest grains. It helps you digest beans. It helps you digest meats, because it helps digest those proteins, especially cooked food, mm-hmm. mainly in relation to cooked food. And most people eat cooked food. Yeah. We're not a lot of us have trouble with raw food. I know my wife cannot handle raw kale. She just can't. It's just something in her system. It's too hard to digest for her. But, of course, kale is a superfood, and people drink it all the time raw, and they're okay. And we also have another thing we like to say, John, and that is bio-individuality,
Bio-individuality.
It was a big topic at the NTA conference last in March, where we sponsored again. We're a sponsor for the Nutritional Therapy Association and Weston A. Price and Price Pottinger, because we believe in those organizations. And the bio-individuality is important because, what might be good for you may not be good for me. Yeah. I recently went off all alcohol. That's been like 3 years. But, to me, it's just my body just rejects it, yep. And I can't drink even if I wanted to. And I didn't have to quit drinking. I could if I wanted to. It just makes me feel bad. Yeah. I had some gluten this week, and I knew it makes me feel bad. It makes my shoulder flare up. And but I took it. I was like, okay, well, like Paul Chek told me literally, like, Lance, you can, something can cause you something as long as you know what the ramifications are when you drink it or eat it. Then you just deal with those symptoms. Yes. And maybe it goes through. And Dr. Tom O'Brien, another good friend of myself and potentially a guest of yours, if you want to be introduced to him. He said something about gluten, and he did the gluten summit and autoimmune fix and different things, and he said, if you're responding to gluten, every time you put even a kind of almost celiac, but if you put a little bit of gluten in your body, you have at least 30 days to recover from that. Yeah. So it takes that long to get it out of your system. Yep. So the one last thing about bone broth too, it said, some of the amino acids are helping to detox your body. Mm-hmm. So mostly the, I'm brain farting on the detox amino acid, but it's in there. Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Hey, it's Saturday morning. It's probably at the end of a long week. I want to ask you, here's something that's really impressive about bonebroth.com, which is it's a great website, but also there's a little tab there called Lab Analysis. Now, the reason I go awesome is because with Alcoa USA, it's like the people that actually end up with our product are the people that do the research and actually read the lab results, and most people don't. But I was really impressed that actually there's several different analyses here, and stellar, fantastic.
Thank you. And they will be redone as well this year. Where there's new label laws out. So it's one of those things as a company, small company, we're trying to figure out, how to budget for it. But we have to basically redo all the nutrition labels because of FDA laws.
Yes.
But yes, we will be doing that. We did originally as well have a lead test done on our product. That's out there. We have no lead in our bone broths, no heavy metals in general at all. The book Nourishing Broth, we started with that one. And then, the lab analysis is so that, because a computer can't really tell you what's in bone broth because it can't compute the 18 or 24 hours of what's happening with the product. So we literally have to take our solid frozen product. And this is going to, truthfully, John, for your audience, it's coming out pretty quickly. You should look for we'll be putting new results up probably within a month or two.
Okay.
It takes 2 to 4 weeks just to get the results back.
Yeah.
But it is an initiative on my plate to just get finance and get these done because we need to know what's out there, especially as we move into the doctor's bone broth market. We also create too. So I'm glad you noticed that, and we do take so just like I said, we're very transparent. You could go to our suppliers page. Yep. You could go to every single one of their websites. You could see what the chickens are eating, what the cows, the certified organic GAP level 4 and higher certified grass-fed cows are eating. Well, they're eating grass. You could see that our chickens are verified non-GMO. So we put that in. We're not personally verified non-GMO, but the chickens are. Of course, the vegetables we use are not necessarily in the GMO market, so everything we do is certified organic. So it basically precludes any GMOs.
Yeah.
But the important part of the chicken was, I met with with David Pittman a few years ago up at Mary's Chicken, and about 30% at the time of the organic feed coming in was being rejected because of GMOs. That's organic feed coming from organic farms. So that's where the verified program comes in. And again, for me, taking no chances, folks. Yeah. Taking no chances. If you want to heal, you can't be eating GMOs and healing at the same time. We know that GMOs are not good. And I'm not a scientist on that, but I'm a researcher as well. And I don't want to eat GMOs. I don't want my son to eat them. I don't want my wife to eat them. And we are just suffering as little guinea pigs down here with the GMO people.
Yeah, I put that in the class, eating food that's reheated or cooked using microwaves. It's the same thing.
Yeah, we even have companies out there that are like, if you're in a pinch, just put our bone broth in the microwave. It's like, I think it's in, I'll try to get a note for you, but it's in Nourishing Broth maybe. That literally with bone broth, you never... Of course, we have it right on our package. Do not microwave. End of the story. I think we had a link on the old site. If it's not up there, we had a link to Mercola's article on basically throw away your microwave.
Yeah.
Just get rid of it because there's entire countries on the planet that will not. That I think Russia, it's illegal to have a microwave.
Right. Yeah.
Because they've done the research and it's terrible. And you've got companies, well-meaning, maybe not so well-meaning, but hey, if you're in a rush, put our package in a microwave and microwave it in the plastic container. Like, really?
Yeah.
You're trying to heal people. What are you selling? Come on now. No, never put ours in. Just take the time. Somebody asked me about, and we could talk a little bit about this in a minute, but this idea. But the idea is this is fresh frozen. It's about as good as you can get. And yes, please don't put it in a microwave, everybody, and throw that microwave away and just put it on a stove.
Yeah. Do you know about induction stoves?
What's that?
Do you know about induction stoves?
Yep. I have a couple induction burners.
Induction burner. Right.
Induction burners are great. They just heat, and you have to use stainless steel.
Yeah. Yeah, so my sister a month or so ago, I was up in Oregon helping her out, and she had one, and it was just like, whoa. I mean, it's just like fast. So it's just
they're very fast. The main thing about, again, with those induction burners is you do need to be careful you don't overcook, and because they get hot super fast.
Yeah.
But they're super clean energy, and we use them for indoor cooking and whatnot. So good stuff. Yeah. So what's up? What else, John? What's going on?
Well, actually, where can people get your product? Where are you distributed? Right on the website, like you said, transparency. It's like it lists all the retailers.
Yeah, we got all the retailers. We're out. We're mostly throughout Southern California. We're pretty much dominating San Diego. And I will say this: the main thing is we're in no corporates at this point. Our largest corporate account is probably Bristol Farms, and they only have about 12 stores, so they're not quite corporate. But no Whole Foods, no Sprouts, no Vons, no Ralphs, no Safeways, nothing like that. So mostly local independent grocers that are featuring certified organic foods like Air One in LA, those places. And of course, we love bonebroth.com. You know, we want people to go there and buy product. We have a very reasonable cost at free shipping at $135 or more. So you're going to get your bone broth for about, fairly, and again, we have tons of people that buy a 2-pack or a 3-pack, and we just basically want people to buy more.
Right.
Because 1 or 2 broths is going to get them a flavor idea and a taste. But again, the test really is how does it look? How does it perform the next day? What does it look like the next day in a glass jar? Which again is right in our packaging, how to care for this product. But the main thing is it gels. Yeah, we got tons of gelatin in the beef, tons of gelatin and that's a gelatin collagen, and even our coconut soup, which is 82% bone broth. So yeah, we have a couple other products up there too. So bonebroth.com, local retailers if you're in Southern California. We've got a couple outside of California. We have a couple in Albuquerque area, New Mexico. We have one out in Sedona. We've got a couple oddball stores, one up in Oregon.
Where in Oregon?
Salem.
Yep.
It's called Life Source Naturals. Yep. They carry our product. And we just did get some distribution this year, so we're looking to expand a little bit. But, for most of the podcast listeners that are in America, of course, we're only in America. We can't get outside the borders. We are in all 50 states. And just contact us if you have any questions.
Okay, what is I'm going to ask, what's your most popular package or product you're selling?
The certified organic chicken bone broth.
Yep.
That's number one seller. It's the most common. Beef's a close second. We haven't done a lot of marketing on our AIP product. And the AIP product is the traditional bone broth minus a lot of ingredients. Basically, it's just carrots, celery, parsley, water, and bones.
Yeah.
None of our products – the beef and coconut soup have a small amount of salt in it. The rest of the products have no salt in them. So we have 7 products. We do have a vegan product as well, which is under development but available on the website.
Wow, that's fun.
We're not making any claims about it. We call that no bone broth. And rockin' roots, vegetables, and herbs. And truthfully, we're going to be seeking out a couple of our vegan friends.
Yes.
To help us formulate.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
So probably Dr. Coleridge Chaudhry might give us some information. We're going to take 3 or 4 people and just kind of help them tweak our formula. So we're basically trying to create a bone broth, a no bone broth for those that don't eat bones.
Yeah, awesome.
And the vegetable component as well is somewhat missing from most bone broths. We have a lot of veggie in our bone broth, but most bone broths have very little vegetables in them. Some of them are as simple as bone and water. But again, we like to make it flavorful because we're the flavor chef. Our AIP products are amazing, and of course, they're pet friendly. So if you are feeding your little one, you want to use those because they don't have garlic and onions. And but we've had hundreds of people tell us they feed them the regular product without a problem. So
yeah, oh man, I'm looking forward to getting into this. This will be fun.
Thanks. I appreciate it, man.
Before we go, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say, but I have one last question we love to ask everybody, which is if there was one thing, whether it's a health tip or living well or just anything you think everybody needs to know, what would it be?
I would say to love yourself, give yourself a break. That's what I'm telling myself today. I need to give myself a break today and just love who I am and what God's doing in your life. And that would be today's tip. I think on a more practical level, I always tell people to get their feet in the sand or their feet on the earth.
Grounding.
Feel that connection. If you're in a cold, rainy area, then just take off your shoes and let that rain hit you in the face and just understand that every morning this morning, 5 o'clock, I got a huge amount of birds in my yard. Yes, the birds are singing today, Lance. The birds are singing.
I was doing that this morning too, about 5 o'clock. Oh yeah. Every morning.
The birds are singing, man. Everything is okay.
Yeah.
There's so much fear out there, and it's just like, give yourself a break, man. Love yourself. I'm going to be on a radio show, which will be too late for this podcast, but with Heather Dane on Tuesday called Love Yourself to Great Health. So
yeah. Great.
Sort of the theme in my life right now.
That's awesome. Anything else you want to cover? Because, man, you said a lot. And And I'll be doing show notes, as you know, so I've got my work cut out for me.
Absolutely. Well, you got a great program, and I feel like this was a really top interview for me. I'm getting cleaner and better. I would say the last note might be, especially because when it comes to bone broth, it's like anything. Don't settle. There's so much marketing out there.
Oh, I know.
Paul Check warned me, when there's a lot of marketing behind something, just be careful. So just be careful with that. Go for the real, genuine thing and make it yourself. Enjoy that process of healing, and just be aware that that's there, and we're here to serve. Yeah. So,
and love.
Love is the ultimate spice. Like I said earlier, it's one of our trademarks. And, when you have that love in your life, whether it's your passion, your significant other, your child, your job, whatever it is, that it just makes, your immune system is loving you for that, truthfully.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here.
Sure. I really appreciate it, John. Thank you.